everyone. I'm just kidding.
What? You could have kept going. Hey, everyone.
Welcome back.
Welcome. That's so bad.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Elisa.
And we didn't have to bring her cheese. She came willingly.
Yeah. If you don't know, listen to our last episode.
It was the hair and the fingernail clippings for me.
Yeah, it was the cheese all the way for me. I'm so fascinated by cheese.
So this week, we are going to talk about ghostly encounters on cruise ships. And what's kind of interesting is I started thinking about this as Jamie and I were watching a murder show about all these people who were murdered on cruise ships.
And thrown overboard.
Makes you want to go on one, doesn't it?
Right?
Yeah, it gave me warm fuzzies.
It's like, man, could I be next? That'd be great.
Let's book a cruise right now.
But it makes you wonder, like, because it does happen. People do go missing or murdered on cruise ships.
Yeah.
And if they're disappearing, are they haunting these ships? Because these aren't things that most people would think about, that their cruise ship is haunted.
Well, right. I mean, I think when a lot of people think about hauntings, they think about buildings, you know?
Yeah.
And not like ships necessarily, cruise ships, I would say.
But, I mean, cruise ships are basically floating cities.
Yep.
I mean, they have malls, and some of them have, amusement rides like roller coasters and
Big long
Ferris wheels.
slides.
Yeah.
Golf.
Everything. Yeah.
Putt-putt golf.
Casinos.
Tracks. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, willing to, it makes sense that there might be at least some hauntings on there. So I was like, I wonder if I can find any. And boy, I found quite a few.
Did you? I'm not surprised. Because
I'm
not
not either.
just people that maybe get murdered and tossed overboard or fall overboard, but you got to figure there's people that maybe, have a heart attack and don't make it. Or, I mean, there's other factors. There's so many things that could go on.
Yeah.
I wonder how many old people die
Yeah.
on cruise ships.
Oh, exactly.
I don't know. So this is the interesting thing is when you're out in international waters, the cruise ship is essentially underneath the laws of the country that it sails under. And surprisingly enough, all cruise ships that are out there, they're not from the US.
No.
They may sail out of US ports, but they're like Sweden or Great Britain or
Yep.
somewhere else.
Uh-huh.
And they don't actually have to report the deaths on board out in international waters to the U.S. public or the disappearances or any of that stuff.
No.
Only if they're
sneaky.
actually in port.
It's kind of something to consider if you're going on a cruise. I think in that respect, it's kind of scary,
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'll still go.
Well, I didn't say I wouldn't go. I just something you should consider and think about,
Right? Something to think about.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about too is if your cruise ship is in a port like Barbados or Dominican Republic or somewhere in another country,
Yeah.
you are underneath their jurisdiction and their laws.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And they're not the same as in the States. So,
exactly. So what might be legal in one spot could be illegal in another.
Yeah. So you gotta watch it there too.
Watch your back.
Watch
Except
the back,
murder
man.
is obviously never legal. At least I don't think so.
The way the world is now,
At this point, we could be getting eaten and people would be like, oh, why are they doing that?
I'm sure we're not that far off.
Keep walking.
Yeah, just don't look. Don't make eye contact. Just go.
Would you like an arm or a leg? $25.
Roasting them on a spit over a grocery cart.
Ugh.
All right, so let's get started.
All right. A mother and a daughter had a spooky encounter while staying aboard the Brilliance of the Seas. Or that already sounds nice. On the final morning of their cruise, a mother woke to find her 15-year-old daughter standing eerily in the center of the room, watching her. She called out to her daughter and asked what she was doing. Her daughter answered, but to her surprise, her daughter's voice came from a couch behind her. The mother looked again, but the shadowy figure she'd mistook for her daughter was gone. A short time later, both mom and her daughter were awake and getting dressed to leave when the TV suddenly turned on by itself. The channels kept changing, as if someone was cycling through them. This freaked both of them out, as the remote was sitting on the bed untouched. Following this, they were both overwhelmed by the sudden stench of rotten eggs. Oh, you know what that means.
They farted.
Someone was releasing their demons.
Yes, they had pickled eggs and beer for dinner.
The mother peered out into the hall to see if she could find the source of the smell. That's when she heard 2 staff members next door struggling to open the storage door. The mother overheard them telling the other that it was like someone was holding the door shut from the inside, and for the mother, that was the last straw. She grabbed her daughter, and they immediately checked out several hours before they were supposed to.
That would be very unnerving.
I think the unnerving part for me would be like
The smell.
waking up to seeing my daughter standing in the middle of the room,
Oh,
Or what
when
you think
realize
is your daughter?
it's not
or
your
what you
daughter.
think is,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's gone and it's just staring at you. Nope.
I think for me, it's the smell of the eggs because
The sulfuric
the
smell.
Yeah, because we in the paranormal field obviously know what that
Yeah.
means, but
Usually the sign of a
Type 3.
type 3 negative entity.
yeah, I think that for me is the unnerving part because we don't like dealing with those things. It's not that we never run across it, but we don't go looking for it.
No.
Nope. And when we do find it, we
ignore it.
hightail it out.
We ignore it and do our thing. Yeah.
Yep. A woman aboard the cruise ship Carnival Conquest had a frightening experience when a spectral intruder appeared in her cabin. It was 5 p.m. when the woman and her husband had just finished getting dressed up for dinner. As she inspected herself in the mirror, the woman heard something that made her hair on her neck stand up. It was a gruff male voice whispering the words, "You look beautiful tonight." At first, the woman assumed it was her loving husband putting on a voice. When she turned around, she saw he was still outside on the balcony with the door shut. She then looked at the TV, but it was on the menu channel, and the sound muted. She shrugged it off and assumed it had probably come from somewhere out in the hall. But as she continued getting ready, the woman heard a creepy compliment again. This time there was no doubt that it had come from inside the cabin, so she raced out onto her balcony to tell her husband. The invisible entity didn't speak again, but what was particularly disturbing about the experience was that it happened on the same night that a disgruntled male passenger threw himself overboard.
Ooh.
Ew.
That's I don't know. For me, I guess because of what we do, if I heard someone say, "You look beautiful" or something tonight,
Be like, thanks.
and I'd be like, "Oh, that's so cool." And then if I heard it again, I'd be like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
Yep. Knowing it wasn't like my husband or that
Yep.
because it seems like it sounds like it was a very genuine just compliment. Like there was nothing menacing about it. But that's just because of what we do. We're more
Right.
Yeah.
open and not scared by those pieces. But I get if you've never had that happen or whatever, that could be a little frightening, especially knowing.
And
But-
if you think about it, she's like, going from her perspective, she's in the room,
Yes.
getting dressed
Yeah.
and ready. And then all of a sudden she hears this man's voice, "You look beautiful tonight." And she's like,
Well, once she realizes it's not her husband,
and some
especially-
dude just jumped off the boat.
Right, so you draw that correlation.
Yeah.
It may have been that guy, or it may not have been.
Could be
It's-
coincidence in that
it's
happening,
just-
right?
Yeah, it could just be coincidence, but it's hard to say. Who knows?
So this one starts off, working as a musical theater performer, I've lived all over the world, on tour buses, in hotels, and on cruise ships, to name a few. For all the places I've lived and experienced, haunted hotels and theaters included, it's almost surprising that it took as long as it did to encounter a ghost. I've had some spooky onstage incidents like mid-show power outages and flickering lights, but those aren't entirely uncommon. On my second cruise ship contract aboard a small luxury vessel that took me to places like Patagonia, Antarctica, and Morocco, I saw my first and only ghost. It happened in the middle of the night during one of my first sleeps on board the ship, right around Halloween time, as fate would have it.
How perfect.
Right?
Set the scene.
I had the privilege of not having to share a cabin, so I was alone when the spirit visited me during the night. Something prompted me to wake up, and when I did, I saw the ghost right near my bathroom door. It was that of an older man, donning a news cap with a pipe dangling from his mouth. He didn't linger or stay long, but he made his presence known. During my nearly 7 months on board the ship, I never saw him again.
7 months on the ship?
Yeah.
Wow.
Holy moly.
That, I don't know if that would be easy. I guess it depends on the ship.
Right? My hunch is that he was the spirit of a passenger who had passed away on the ship. Believe it or not, most cruise ships are overly prepared for all unlikely events, including death. Many even have morgues that can hold multiple bodies if need be. During my time on that ship, we did unfortunately experience multiple medical emergencies and loss of life. If anything, the experience definitely made me believe in an afterlife. I've never forgotten my first ghost encounter. It made me believe once and for all that they do exist and they're not always as scary as they're made out to be. Sometimes they just serve as a reminder of the past.
That's very true.
Yeah, that wasn't a super scary one, so.
No,
But it's sweet.
It is.
it is.
Like, just, it sounds like somebody from obviously a different era.
Yeah.
Just kind of, whether it was residual or not, it sounds like it was more residual.
Kind of sounded like that.
Yeah. Like he, you know, like maybe he just, that was his room at one time or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's where he was happiest.
Or you just stop by to say hi and
Yeah.
walk on.
Yeah. I like those stories.
Me too.
What I think is neat about it is that they're like, this showed me that, you know, this gave me proof that there's an afterlife. And that's
Yep.
kind of what I've said always about doing paranormal investigations. It's like having the experiences that we've had and collecting the evidence that we have. It just shows you that there is existence after this life, because if there wasn't, what are we experiencing and hearing?
Yeah. It's something. We just don't know exactly what. And the thing is we don't come here to try to tell other people that they should believe in it and all that. We come here to tell you why we do.
Yeah.
Yep, and our evidence behind it.
experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this next one isn't so cute and sweet. The Queen Mary.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of that ship before somewhere. Somewhere.
Didn't we go there one time?
I
Maybe.
think I slept in like the servant's room, but you know.
I mean, we offered you the bigger bed.
But you are our servant. I mean, you're a friend.
Oh, rude.
Hey, but I mean, my room could have possibly been the room that they talk about that was haunted
Oh, that's very true.
because it was in the servant's room,
Yeah.
the maid's room.
Ooh.
So just
well,
saying.
yeah, her room was actually really cute. Ours was big and open and everything, and of course had the big bed in it because there's two of us. But I was willing to sleep out on the couch, and Josh could have taken the servant's room.
I would have slept in the hallway.
Yeah.
Someone almost did.
Because the thing is where we were. It's like
It wouldn't
sleep
matter.
wherever. Yeah,
It
wouldn't
would
matter.
not have mattered. Would not have mattered.
Nope.
That place, like, that was probably the coolest room that we've ever stayed in. Like,
Hands down. Well, I did like the Stanley.
well, I mean, like, in meaning, like, it was
On the
a
ship.
room over here, a hallway here.
Yeah.
Like, for it being a room in a ship,
Yeah.
you normally see them small,
Yeah. That's very true.
especially when you're on cruises.
Yep.
So
This was a big room.
this was huge.
Multi-room.
Yep. So the Queen Mary is history's most infamous haunted cruise ship. Many of the people who've been aboard it have claimed to see ghosts of deceased officer William Eric Stark. As the story goes, Stark stole a bottle of gin one night to liven up his watch. But when he started to drink it, he realized it wasn't gin. It was a powerful cleaning fluid called tetrachloride. Stark laughed off his mistake, but soon became violently ill. He died within days, and many believe his ghost still lingers around the main deck. Cruise members and passengers alike say you can hear unexplainable choking sounds on chilly evenings when no one is around. Many believe these are dying sounds of poor William Stark. And to hear somebody dying,
That would be
hearing the choking sounds of somebody dying,
terrifying.
nope.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I've heard this story before where he drank it, but it obviously it must not have had a really potent smell.
Either
or
that or he was already
flavor.
drunk already.
Yeah, it would have to be something because how would you not know you're drinking a chemical? I know there's some chemicals out there, okay, that are like odorless, flavorless, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think a vast majority of them, they have a strong chemical smell, flavor. How could you ingest that much unless you were 3 sheets to the wind already?
But it didn't say he drank the bottle. He just said he had some.
I wonder
Right.
how much of this you would need to take
Right.
to make yourself die.
I bet you it's not a lot.
Yeah. Hard to say because we don't, I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
and the thing is that they were on they were moving on a ship, right?
Yeah.
While the ships today have a lot of medical stuff on board and the ability to call the Coast Guard and get
Pump your
a
stomach.
helicopter out there, pump your stomach, that stuff. I don't think they had all of that stuff on the Queen Mary.
I don't know. You know they had less, but we don't know to what extent.
Well, and we don't know when this happened.
No, we don't.
So who says it was like out to sea?
That's true.
Because it still has people there
That's
protecting
right.
the ship.
Yeah.
Because when we went there, we had to go through 2 things of security basically just to get in.
Yeah.
You had to prove that you were going to stay there in order to get in the ship.
Yeah, the first one was in the parking lot before we even parked.
Yep.
And then the second one was before you even entered.
Before you even could go inside,
Yeah.
they had a desk outside.
They had to make sure that you had a room there, that you were staying there, or that you were there for the tour, whatever.
You had to show proof. Like,
had to.
I had my luggage, and she was so stern with me that I was not allowed to get on
Yeah,
the ship
until we proved.
until you guys could prove otherwise.
Yep. Yeah,
Oh.
so they really are pretty strict. What'd you find?
Okay. 1, tetrachloride is like bleach.
Okay, so it would have that smell, right?
Right.
It would have a potent smell.
250 parts per million is fatal in 15 minutes.
Okay, so let's put that in perspective. How much is that?
That is a swallow, less than a swallow.
Okay, so that would make,
You don't need to drink much and it'll kill you.
yeah. But it said that he died the next day. Is that what it said?
I think it said days later.
Days later. So he probably
very little.
very little went,
realized-
that is not,
That's not what I thought it was.
that's not alcohol. And then
Gin or whatever.
he could have spit it out. But having
Some.
already contacted his mouth, it would have been enough to absorb and kill him.
Yeah. Yeah, because you got thin membranes.
Yep. So it wouldn't have taken much to kill him.
No.
Well, and like people will put things under their tongue to help it absorb it faster.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
Ugh, no bueno.
So sad, though.
A mother and daughter were enjoying some well-deserved R&R on a small but intimate cruise liner known as the Thomas Celebration. To kill some time, they decided to pay a visit to the ship's luxury cinema. The theater was completely empty, so they took a seat toward the back. 10 minutes into their film, the mother and daughter saw the silhouettes of 3 people enter. These late arrivals walked the entire length of the theater as though they were looking for a seat. This was strange because there were clearly plenty of free seats available. The mysterious figures eventually stopped at the row that was directly behind where the mother and daughter were sitting. They shuffled in to take their seats, and the daughter felt them bump the back of her chair. She started feeling uneasy and whispered to her mother that they should get up and leave. As the mother and daughter took up to leave, they took one last look behind them, and the anonymous figures were suddenly nowhere to be seen. It was like they had completely vanished.
Wow.
Because you know, like, You get the vibe.
Oh, yeah.
It gets that creepy.
It's when you get it, it's unmistakable.
Yeah.
It really is.
And you don't even have to see anything. You just
No.
start feeling it.
Yep.
That's why your body is your best tool.
But they felt it bumped the seat behind them. So it's
Well,
like,
that just adds to it. See,
Right?
that just confirms it more.
I know.
yeah, that'd be terrifying. Then it's like, oh, we are leaving. We're
Yep.
out.
Okay, I'm out. In 2005, a man vacationing with his son on a cruise ship, the Thomas Destiny, got the fright of his life when he woke to a stranger in his cabin. It all started when the man, who was normally a heavy sleeper, was awoken by the sound of his wardrobe doors swinging open. He sat up and saw a man with shoulder-length hair and an unfamiliar uniform rummaging through his things. The man shouted for him to stop, and the stranger dived headfirst into the wardrobe. The startled traveler immediately leapt out of the bed to investigate, but of course there was no trace of the intruder. This was physically impossible, as the open wardrobe doors were blocking the main exit. The man was understandably shaken by this encounter, but he managed to get back to sleep. But his ordeal wasn't over yet. A few hours later, he was woken again, this time by his young son. The boy shot up out of bed and started speaking in a strange and unfamiliar voice. The boy said, "You don't care about the people on this ship," and then suddenly fell back to sleep. The man had always been highly skeptical about the existence of ghosts, but the strange events of this night definitely changed his opinion. So it's like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Right, I was
Right.
going to say.
Chronicles of Narnia.
That's the reason why, obviously, the reason why he couldn't find the guy is because he went to Narnia.
That's right.
He just dove right back into Narnia.
Yep.
He should have got up and chased him because he would have ended up in Narnia with him.
Maybe.
Ex-cruise worker and author of Cruise a la carte, Brian David Bruns, has recounted the moment one of his fellowship associates described his run-in with what he thought to be a ghost on board the windsurf cruise liner. Having traveled the world countless times during his stint on the ship, Brian explained that a handful of his coworkers told of their own supernatural encounters. The first tale was told to him by an onboard spa manager, Rick, who came to Brian one day in a state of dismay. "I saw a ghost," he reportedly told Brian. Brian explains. His brow furrowed deeply and he stared at the gallery deck. "I was about to mock him, but chose instead to bite my tongue." Rick was shaking his head slowly back and forth, eyes staring at the door, staring at nothing. "He was truly distraught," Brian continues. "Are you serious?" I said. It wasn't really a question. Of course he was serious. Rick was serious about everything that didn't matter. At first, Brian didn't believe his colleague, instead choosing to disregard his apparent experience. However, Rick persisted, desperately explaining what he had seen. Rick worked in the spa, situated deep in the bowels of the cruise ship liner, said to be a very quiet and lonely place at night. Brian points out that he had always felt the hallway to be somewhat different. He continues, "I've noticed things moving behind the desk a lot," Rick said. "But you know the melon slices we keep in the urn of drinking water? I heard a gurgle or something and looked up in their direction. In the blink of an eye, they vanished. Then splat, right in front of me, right in the middle of the desk. The melons reappeared, soaking all my paperwork and everything." Despite the chaos, even that first experience hadn't been enough to initially convince Rick that the ship's spa was haunted, despite the rumor that had been circling for some time. Rick continued his tale, which Brian described in his memoir. "I'm doing paperwork. It was about midnight, and a guest walked right past me. I saw her clearly as she passed, middle-aged, long brown hair, and a t-shirt that made her look chunky. I told her we're closed for the night, but she just walked through the spa and into Natalie's massage room. I followed right behind her, calling out. I was angry, actually, because I had a bad time with a stupid passenger complaining all day. I was going to give this lady a piece of my mind. When I got to Natalie's room, I flipped the light switch on, and nobody was there." Brian goes to explain that while this was just one apparent encounter, there were plenty more out there. Windsurf had more resident ghosts than merely in the spa, he says. The cruise director and shore excursion manager both swore they'd seen an apparition floating in the hallway outside the purser's office, midship. The specter was a shadowy yet overturned outline of a man from the waist up. Both knew instinctively it was a male, though no features could be seen on the hazy head. I want to work in that spa.
I don't know, the melons like coming out of the
That's
the water and then splatting on your desk.
Like, that's a little alarming. I tried to get him before he jumped, but I got him like
Mid-jump.
mid-jump. It's all blurry. You weirdo.
But yeah, that would be, I mean, I don't know, like finding out that the Windsors are a very haunted cruise ship. Like, does it still sail? Can we go on it?
I know.
These are all very good questions.
All
See-
very valid questions.
See, I'm a nail tech, and I've heard of people doing nails inside the spa of this cruise ship.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can I work on that one?
Right?
I'll put some cantaloupe out.
In your case, you better put like watermelon or honeydew.
So if you got slapped in the face by a cantaloupe from a ghost, could you claim workman's comp?
Elisa would need medical attention. If it was a cantaloupe.
I might start
Swelling up,
getting some hives.
turning red.
I swear a
look all
ghost
lumpy.
did it.
Yeah.
So what happened to this one? Ghost slapped me with a cantaloupe.
They're like, sure. Any history of mental illness in your family?
Well, actually.
Okay, so I got a long one.
Buckle in.
Buckle up.
Buckle in. Like, what is that?
What am I buckling into?
A rue.
A rube. Yeah.
This happened 15 years ago when I was 19. At the time, I worked on cargo vessels, and this was my third trip to sea. The ship was around 30 years old when I was on board, which doesn't sound old, but it's pretty old for a ship. The vessel had been refitted a few times by the time I was on board. I won't say the name of the ship, as I will be naming people by position, so it would potentially lead to people being identified. For anyone who works in a similar job, you will know what it's like being the young, relatively new guy on an all-male team with people who've lived and worked together for months or years. In essence, you feel like an outsider, and you have to prove your worth, and also you can expect to have a load of practical jokes played on you. So you can imagine when I joined this ship and the guys are all talking about a ghost on board, I was like, yeah, whatever.
They're trying to haze it.
Yep. A little hazing.
Yeah.
They asked me if I believed in ghosts, and I said no, which was actually a lie, as I had experienced things before. Anyway, they just said something like, you will soon, and I just laughed it off. I think I'd been on board for about a week when I first heard a loud knock at the cabin door. I had my own cabin, but it was a small one in the middle of the accommodation with no porthole. I opened the door and there was no one there. I definitely thought I was getting pranked. This started happening regularly, and it would be all sorts of times, often waking me while I was sleeping with 3 loud knocks. Every time I tried to jump up and open the door as quickly as possible to catch the person. But I never saw anyone or even heard them running away. Now, my cabin was roughly in the middle of a corridor. I'd say it was around 20 meters long. So you would have to run 10 meters to get around a corner. A few times, I felt like I'd opened the door quick enough that I should have seen them. This got me thinking maybe it was someone in a neighboring cabin. I asked who was in the cabins next to mine. There was an old guy in one cabin who was in his 60s. I'd never seen him move fast enough. The others were empty. This was quite common on older ships, as they used to get built to house more crew, but ships sail with less and less crew these days. The knocking continued until one day I was at my wardrobe, hanging up my shirt, literally next to the cabin door when it knocked.
What's up with these wardrobes?
Wardrobe.
It's the people coming back from Narnia.
All right.
It's got to be.
Well, I mean, they travel back and forth.
Exactly.
Maybe it's like a portal.
Yeah.
It's not mirrors that are portals. It's wardrobes. I opened it so fast I should have been face to face with them. The corridor was empty. That's when I realized there was something else going on. After that, I started taking more notice of what other people were saying, and I also started paying attention to the oppressive feeling on board. I've been on 2 ships previously, and I sailed on 4 more after this one. None had an atmosphere like that. Things got worse after that. One of my jobs at night would be making rounds on the ship to check cargo. You take a radio with you so you can radio the bridge if you need to. The radio would sometimes loudly blast static for no reason, and if I radioed the officer on the bridge to ask if they said something, they'd come back clear and say, nope, there was no static for them. This happened on multiple radios, so it wasn't just a dud. One day on my rounds, I was in the laundry at 2 a.m. making checks, and an alarm sounded. I spun around to see the watertight door closing behind me. I radioed the bridge and asked if they were closing it, which would be unusual as they only get operated in tests and emergencies. The second mate said no, and on his console it was showing as the door was open. The door closed all the way, and the second mate radios to tell me to try to manually override, as he can't do it from the bridge as it still says it's open. I use the lever to override and open the door. I radio to tell the mate, and he says he'll get it looked at by the engineers. And I continue on with my rounds. As I approach the next door, the alarm sounds again, and it starts closing. I radio the mate, and he says he's not doing anything, and I'd have to override it again. This time, I get it to open, and as soon as it's fully open, it starts to close again. I look around, and the other door is also now closing. At this point, I'm getting shut into the laundry. I get a feeling of impending doom, and that's when the lights begin to flicker and static blasts over the radio.
God, this is like a horror movie.
Right?
That's freaky.
I jump through the closing door. Really bad idea because they can crush you. And he's like, and I got out of there. Now, theoretically, that could be a coincidence of failing systems or someone playing tricks. The doors can be controlled from the bridge, but it's just not something someone would do as a prank since they can kill you.
Well, right. And why would they keep doing it again and again? And then the flickering lights but then the static.
And the thing is they're not watching what's going on, right? So it's not like they can see into that room.
Right.
They don't know where you are in that hallway or in the laundry room.
Yeah. But to be able to make it work exactly how it did, you'd really want to watch it so you're not going to slam it on him.
Right. And kill him.
But they just close at whatever speed they close at.
Right.
Because that's how that guy died on the Queen Mary. He got crushed by that door.
Yeah.
He did.
So also when the door started closing, no one would have known I was there. It was just me and the mate and engineer awake at the time, and there was no cameras. They did a full watertight door test the next day and found no faults. I should mention that watertight doors are each controlled by an independent system, so if one fails, they don't all fail, meaning 2 doors experiencing faults together would be unlikely, to say the least. After that, I never went into the laundry alone again.
I don't blame him.
I wouldn't either. I'd put like a doorstop on that.
Something, right?
There's no doorstop that's going to stop a 10-ton
Just
door.
Crush that. But I wouldn't go alone.
No,
definitely not.
I wouldn't go alone.
And I'd bring flashlight.
Right?
And an oxygen mask. And one night I did my late night rounds as usual and reported back up to the bridge. One night I did my late night rounds as usual and reported back up to the bridge when I had finished. When I got there, the second mate was white as a sheet and shaking. He was holding a cup of tea that was sloshing about from how much his hand was shaking. I asked him if he was okay, and he could barely speak. Finally, he managed to tell me that he was sat in front of the radar screen 5 minutes earlier when he heard me come back to the bridge. He asked if everything was okay, and I didn't respond. He looked over his shoulder back at me, but instead it was an old guy, pale and wide-eyed, staring down at him from just an arm's length away. He literally fell off of his chair, and the old guy disappeared in front of his eyes. He said the worst thing was the expression of malice on the face of the old guy. The second mate was weeping as he told me this, and he was a pretty tough guy.
That is scary.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of what happened in the lake house
Yeah.
when I was sitting in one of the chairs at the breakfast bar.
Yeah?
And I turn around, and there's a little boy standing there. It wasn't my son because I had dropped him off at school like an hour earlier.
Oh,
And I
gosh.
fell out of my chair. Like this was like a stool,
Yeah.
with the back on it. Kind of like the ones we have upstairs now. And I fell off of it and tipped it over. And when I got back up and was looking around,
He's nowhere to be seen.
he's nowhere to be found.
How old was he?
He had been like 6 or 7, maybe.
About the age of our son.
About the age of her son.
Oh, that's creepy.
Size. He was about the same size. Hair color.
Yeah, not the first time I seen him, though.
No.
But it's that shock.
Well, yeah, because I had dropped Azrai off at school. I came back home because I always walk him into the classroom, make sure he gets in okay. And then I left and I drove home. And I went up to the house and I was sitting there having a piece of toast.
Did you feel something behind you or did you?
No, well, I did because I felt like something was there. And so when I looked to my right, he was standing there kind of by the fridge.
Was he looking at you?
Yes,
Ugh.
straight at me.
Oh,
And
my
I
goodness.
fell out of my chair because I was startled.
Oh, for sure.
And when I got back up and I looked around, like, he was nowhere.
And it totally does something to your head
Yeah, it does.
because you think, did I actually just see what I think I just saw?
Yeah. But it's not the first run-in I had with him. I seen him go from he had to been like towards the back of the living room, and you couldn't see that looking out our bedroom door because I was in bed, and it looked through the dining room into the living room. But it's like he ran from the back living room straight forward to where I could see him in the front of the living room, and like when he hit the windows, because we had these big picture windows, he disappeared.
Nope. And that was a brand new house.
That was a brand new house. We were the first ones in it the day it got completed.
That is crazy to me.
That was so cool. It is cool now. It was terrifying back then.
I was by myself back then. Like he was
Yeah,
gone
that's
all the
scary.
time.
That is scary.
Yeah. So
So he says, the worst experience was in my cabin. I've been on board maybe 3 months at this point. So all this stuff, this guy's barely been on the ship and all of this stuff is happening to
it's
him.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can just leave.
No.
Right? Where you
You're
gonna go?
stuck.
Like you're in the middle of the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. You ain't going anywhere.
No.
Maybe that's why that other guy jumped off the ship.
Right?
You never know.
He's like, and I kind of accepted I was stuck on this messed up ship. I guess some of the fear had gone as you get used to being on edge. I ignored my door knocking by this point. It might have even stopped happening. I don't even recall. Anyway, I get into bed one night, read for a bit, and turn off the light. As soon as I turn the light off, I think I see a figure standing over the bed, but it's pretty much pitch black, so I can't make out any detail. And after initially jumping, I reprimanded myself for being silly and assumed it was just my eyes adjusting. Then the figure sits down on the bed, squashing my legs, and turns its head towards me. I can literally hear you screaming sleep paralysis at me right now. But I have experienced sleep paralysis, and I can tell you it wasn't that. I could move my arms and upper body just fine. I couldn't move my feet, but my lower legs were trapped by the weight of something. I was frantically pulling the duvet to try and dislodge this thing and get my legs out, but it was impossible. I tried to reach for the light switch, but it was a couple of inches out of reach. I started full-on swinging at the space where it should be sitting, but my hands didn't hit anything. I started to scream, F off, over and over, and eventually the figure stood up and I could move my legs. I hit the light and there was nothing. I couldn't sleep without copious amounts of alcohol and a nightlight after that evening for a bit after I left the ship, which, as you can imagine, was awesome for picking up girls in my early 20s. Hey, you want to come around and stay over? Excuse me while I get messed up and turn on my nightlight.
Poor guy. Oh, man.
Multiple other things happened after this, but this point, I'm already pretty long, and so I'll skip ahead to the last big thing with multiple witnesses. So when I'd been on the ship about 5 months, and the night watch, me and the night watch were in the crew bar after our watch finished, probably 4 a.m. I was about to begin my routine of getting drunk, so I'd pass out and not care if a ghost sat on me or whatever. We were talking about some of the weird stuff that we had seen on board. It was me, the second mate, the second engineer, and a grease monkey, or an engineer lackey. As we were talking, one of the guys looks across the bar and says, "What the F?" His mouth is open like an O. We all look where he's looking, and a Henry Hoover is floating 2 feet off the floor with its stupid smiling face looking at us. The second mate says, "F off," in like an incredulous manner, and the Hoover gets thrown a few feet to the left instead of just dropping.
Dang. Multiple witnesses.
A thing floating in the air.
That's really uncommon.
Yeah.
So
I've never seen anything like that. That's crazy.
I'm not entirely certain what a Henry Hoover is, but
I'm wondering if it's a vacuum.
That's what I'm thinking.
that's what I think it is
I'm
too.
gonna look it up.
Henry Hoover sounds like the vacuum.
Yeah, it sounds like a vacuum cleaner. But anyway, anything floating 2 feet in the air.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Henry Hoover, it's a vacuum, like the ones that you pull,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And it's red on the bottom, black on the top, and it has a face.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
full on has a face.
it's a shop vac with a face.
Yep. And the hose that you vacuum with is the nose.
It's actually
Nice.
cute until it's floating 2 feet in the air,
Yep.
looking at you.
Then it takes on a whole different feeling.
Right?
Yep.
You gotta wonder, so I imagine it's the same spirit doing all of this stuff. I think to me, it feels like it's just that old guy that just hates everybody. But why?
Well,
Why
does
is
it
he
seem
so
like-
angry?
Does it seem like he hates everybody or he just gets enjoyment out of scaring people? Like he
Good
likes
question.
he likes the shock factor, the awe, like
Well, I wonder if it could be like a spirit with a type A personality, and type A personality likes to control situations.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
in this, they can't control stuff. They can to an extent, but they can't control people seeing them or being able to talk to them or all of that. So what they can control is what they do to others.
right.
So I wonder if that's where
Could be.
it comes in. I mean, it could. There are so many different scenarios that could
Oh,
be,
exactly.
but
Yeah, I don't know. That's just
So does it say whether this guy still works on this ship or was this
we
from-
didn't. He didn't say the ship name.
he didn't say the ship name,
It
and
doesn't say whether he still works.
no, because remember he said after he stopped doing it. Ex-employee, but see, he said after he got off the ship, he would have to get drunk every night and put on his nightlight just to sleep.
That would suck, especially if you don't like alcohol. Then what do you do?
Right?
Just put on your nightlight, I guess.
I mean, it's
You're
not-
like me, and you put the blankets over your head, and you wear comforters, and it could be 100 degrees outside. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then you have a little pinhole just to breathe,
Yep.
and then you don't fall asleep until you're completely exhausted and your body
Just can't stay awake.
can't
any
stay
longer.
awake anymore.
But I mean, think about this though. How much I kind of feel bad for the guy, right? Because this time that he was on the ship, and it was probably a year, right? A lot of times these ship contracts are like a year, about a year's length, just for like one season of whatever they're doing.
Right.
To be so traumatized after working on this one ship
Uh-huh.
that you have to get so inebriated and sleep with the light on, or you can't go to sleep. like that is like some serious trauma associated to whatever happened on this ship to him.
Well, and it makes you wonder, even though he doesn't work there anymore, it makes you wonder that after the fact, what were his nights like after that? Even though, say, like he's in his own place and, nothing happens there, but just the trauma from what happened there at night, does that like ever come back and like give him trouble sleeping?
I'm sure there's triggers.
And anxiety and,
I mean, if you're sleeping with the nightlight on and you're
and alcohol.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But hopefully he's still not medicating himself like that, even though there's nothing going on, just, from the fact that happened to him.
Yeah. So at the time he put this on Reddit, he would have been 34, 35 years old, somewhere in that category. So hopefully he's not.
Well,
Hopefully
I
he's
think
not.
it said on there that he only did it for a little while
Oh, okay.
after. So,
But still, like, it's just.
I really feel for him though, because can you imagine? Like I have felt something sit. In fact, the other day up on the love seat, I felt someone sit next to me. And I have felt before where someone has sat on my bed.
mm-hmm.
So, but to have something that you can't see sit down on your legs to where you cannot move your legs is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Like that is frightening.
Because that it says wait.
Mm-hmm.
But like and usually, like, even if depending on the size of person, right? Like if I sit on your legs,
I'm going to know it.
you're going to know, but you're not going to be able to move your legs, right?
No.
But if someone lighter,
Like me. I'm just kidding.
but if someone lighter sat on your legs, right?
Right.
There's a good chance you could actually probably maneuver your legs enough to throw them off.
Yeah. Or to slip your legs out from
Right.
under them.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this pressure is constant to the point where you can't do anything until you
Right.
cuss at it.
yeah.
Well,
And then it lets you go.
right.
Well, we've seen and read about stories where they see a spirit and it's holding them down.
Yeah.
Where they can't move. Or they have like that super heavy pressure on their chests and they can't move.
right.
And when it's not sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
So, like, that obviously to me does not scream sleep paralysis to
No.
me. You wouldn't be able to move your body to do that.
Yeah. But there's also kind of different sleep paralysis. Like a lot of times what you hear is like people, but they're on their backs and they have a pressure on their chest like there is something, and they have like just this feeling of dread.
Yeah.
Like something pure evil's in the room.
Yeah.
Now, when I got it, and I only ever got it in the lake house, and I only ever had it twice, for me, it wasn't anything that was on the bed or on my chest, but I was on my back and I was alert. I couldn't move, just my eyes. I could look over at Josh just before I still had two eyes back then. And I still had peripheral vision. And I could look over at Josh, but I couldn't move to nudge him awake. I couldn't scream out, nothing. And it wasn't anything sitting on my chest, but it was by the front door of our room, like in the shadow. I
Yep.
couldn't see it,
But you knew it was there.
but I could feel it. And it was frightening. And I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. I could only think in my head and say a prayer. And I said a prayer over and over and over. And finally it left. But yeah,
Yeah, it's always scary.
I've never had it since.
Surprise.
Just in that lake house.
That's why for me, it's like, is it just sleep paralysis? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think so. I think for some it is,
Yeah.
but I think for others it is not.
Yeah. Well, and the difference between my first time and my second time is they happened years apart. But in the same room, in the same house. Never had it before that, never had it after that. So
And your house was haunted.
I believe it was.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, I really do.
But at least our vacuum cleaner didn't float around.
No, but when
Man, that would have been terrifying in itself.
yeah, because we had a Kirby. Those things are heavy.
Yeah.
Can't imagine that floating around.
Right?
But we had the sound of all of our doors in the basement opening and closing.
I know that.
And he was gone. And it was just me, and my son's room was down there.
That's always scary.
And I heard him over the baby monitor. Mom, can I come upstairs? I'm like, yeah, get up here. he ran up the stairs and went in my room. And I went downstairs when the noise stopped. All the doors were in the same place because we leave them all open.
They never moved.
They never moved.
That always
the
baffles
sounds.
me.
Yeah.
That they can create those sounds, but nothing moves. Like how is that possible?
But-
Nothing was out of place.
But what happened after that, though? Because you
So-
closed the door to your room.
Yeah, so after I went downstairs and I checked to make sure, the slider was locked and all the windows are locked, and I noticed nothing was out of place. None of the doors, they were all how I left them when I tucked my son in. And I came back upstairs and I had Azariah sleep in the bed with me that night. I didn't sleep, of course, but I went into our room, and our room was huge.
Massive.
It was a massive room, and I shut the door and I locked the door. And I had a cell phone, but signal out there was really bad. But I turned on the TV and I put in a DVD, and Azariah fell asleep and I stayed up all night, the light on. But I heard, and mind you, he's out of town. He's not even in the same state.
Of course.
And I hear like what sounds like someone coming up the basement steps from the downstairs where all the doors were. And those steps are carpeted, but I hear the thud, thud, thud. So when you get to the top of the stairs, it turns to hardwood floors. And I hear these boots, thud, thud, thud. And they walk, because the stairs come up like this, and then it's wood, and then there's the back door here, and then the wood wraps around and goes down the hall next to the living room, and then it goes into the kitchen, into the dining room. So it's
Kitchen,
by the
dining
front
room.
door, and then dining room, and then straight off the dining room is our bedroom door.
So is there only one bedroom upstairs?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I hear it, come up the stairs, hit the wood floor, walk down the hall next to the living room, in through the entryway, and down through the dining room, and it stops at the door. And I physically see and hear the doorknob moving. I've locked the door. I got the phone in my hand. I have barely one bar, and
Yeah.
it cuts in and out. And I got my phone in my hand, and I hear it turning. And it's like whatever this was, when it realized, honestly, I thought there was somebody in the house.
Oh, yeah.
That somebody had broken in downstairs through the basement slider or window. But I had checked everything. Nothing was askew. But once whatever this was realized that door was just locked, there was nothing. I didn't hear it walking away. Nothing. I stayed up the rest of the night. I never heard anything.
That is crazy.
There was like no footsteps leaving, nothing.
So what did you think? Did you think that there was someone standing there?
I thought
Or just
for a
waiting?
while, because I was looking like under the door. So the
Yeah.
bedroom's carpeted, and it's
Yeah.
like this longer carpet. But I was like looking under the door to see if I could see any like movement. I didn't
Yeah.
see anything. And I never heard. I was listening for like any more footprint or, footfalls, and
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh.
And that's when I thought, that's got to be something, like that was not an actual person. But whatever it was had to be intelligent, because it seems like they had intent. But that house was brand new. We were the first ones to ever live in it.
Was there other houses that were in the area?
There was one next door, but that was also brand new.
Were there older houses ever in that area?
In the area, but not on that property.
That's interesting.
And that was a big piece of property. And
It was the side of a hill that they had to level part of it to put a house.
Yep. So at one time, it was just a hill.
Yeah.
Big. Yeah.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying.
The crazy thing is the only time that ever happened in the house.
That's the only time that ever happened.
You know what's interesting is things like that have happened to me, but it's always when my husband is gone.
Yeah.
Every time.
That's when he was gone.
Yep.
Did anything ever happen to you when you were there?
Just the boy. I saw the boy several times.
Yeah.
But it was just the boy.
Yeah. Whatever this was, though, was not no little boy. Like, I feel like when I saw the little boy, like, while he startled me, I didn't feel any negativity from it. Like, he didn't, like, scare me as in, like, he's up to no good, or there's, something evil.
He never bothered me, and I was still terrified of that stuff at that time, but it never bothered me.
Right. He felt like he was just there. Like, I don't know if he's connected to the land or like, the highway that went kind of, because we were 200 yards or 200 feet
Up.
slope up to the hill to the top of our driveway. If like it was a kid that had maybe gotten in, there's a lot of wrecks on 291. A lot of them are fatal. It's just a 2-lane highway. It's windy in parts. It's dangerous. So we don't know if it was something like that or...
Well, it just makes me wonder if it's just the area somehow. Because
Yeah.
you know how you have like the Appalachian Mountains and how there's a lot of stories behind that,
Yeah.
that it's haunted and there's creepy things that go on in the Appalachian Mountains. I wonder if somehow this area is the same way. I wonder if your neighbors ever saw or heard anything.
Great question.
We never
We
asked.
talked to the one neighbors that were still there quite a bit.
We did, but we never broached that subject.
We never did, but you would think that somewhere it would come up, like weird things.
I mean,
But
I don't know. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier, but still, it's hard to bring up subjects like that.
as soon as someone knows
Yes.
that you're into it,
yeah.
then it's like a flood of conversation. But it's not generally something you bring up in conversation unless
No.
you meet a strange lady in the book center at Walmart. Remember that
Oh.
lady? It was
Yeah.
weird. It was, but anyway, you just don't normally bring it up to people.
No, especially if you don't know them super well.
Yeah.
That's true.
And-
Weird stuff.
And we weren't really super into it at the time.
Oh, I love the paranormal stuff, but I didn't like the type of things that were happening
You're like, not in my house.
when you were home.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that's when
The
the
world.
stuff that was unnerving happened. The little boy, I can live with that. Yeah, he startled me, but
Right.
that's just because, it's like, wait
It's
a
not
minute.
something you're expecting to see.
My kid's not here. I just dropped him off at school. Who are you? you
Yeah.
know?
It's like, you want a sandwich? You hungry?
You want some of my toast?
What?
Is it snack time? Do you need something?
You want an
Want some
Uncrustable?
water? Yeah.
Some Cheez-Its?
Some roux?
Some piece of cheese.
All right. So we got one last piece,
Okay.
and it's not a ghost story per se. So on Lake Winnipesaukee,
Winnipesaukee.
Winnipesaukee,
Yeah, Josh, get it right.
right? Jeez. And I don't know where that's at, but
It's east.
it's somewhere east, right? It says, the lake is beautiful, but it has a dark side. During this 90-minute cruise, sample desserts while hearing haunted tales of cursed lands, mysterious fires, haunted hotels, and unsolved disappearances.
It's in New Hampshire. Okay, it's large glacial lake with 258 islands.
Whoa.
Ooh. Can I have one of the islands?
Oh, joke.
Right?
Okay, continue.
So this is a cruise that goes around July, August, September, and October, and you get desserts and ghost stories for 90 minutes.
Nice.
That's fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun,
All right. Adding it to our list.
right? And it's $60 a person.
Oh, hey. Heck yeah.
If you guys are into the paranormal and live out by Lake Winnipesaukee,
Check it out.
check it out.
Ooh, and let us know. If
Yes.
you do go, let us know.
I mean, it's like the perfect thing, right? It's dessert and ghost stories.
Yeah, I'll skip the dessert. I just want the stories. And
Heck no, I'm in for the dessert too.
okay, you guys can have my desserts.
All right, we'll fight over your desserts.
Okay, you fight
Deal.
over my dessert. I just want to be there for the experience of the stories and stuff.
That'd be awesome.
It'd be amazing. So fun.
So if you guys ever had an experience on a cruise ship, ghostly encounters, something you guys can't explain, let us know. Send us the story on our socials.
Yeah, and also if you've been on the Queen Mary, so I know a lot of people go there and they, just sometimes for the paranormal tours themselves. But if you've stayed there, went on a tour, and you've had an experience or even just like a feeling or whatever, let us know. Like, send us a message, let us know, and,
Yeah, absolutely. And if we can use it on a future podcast, let us know.
yeah.
We love sharing other people's ghost stories as well as our own.
Well, yeah, we love hearing about other people's experiences too, and to be able to share them.
And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you.
Are you into weird shit? Yeah?
You into cryptids?
What about hauntings? Yeah, I've got a ghost for you.
Oh, you like otherworldly beings?
Me too. Check out all these aliens. We have plenty. How do you feel about a good legend?
Want to hear about spooky happenings?
Yeah, you do.
Let us show you what we've got.
Hey guys, grab a drink and join us, Amanda and Sean, every week while we dive into the strange and haunting topics that have piqued our interest.
See you over at The Haunted and the Strange, wherever you get your podcasts.
Stay spooky.
Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.